What is good? It's your boy Drip TCG. Real quick, this is a two-part video. There's a accompanying video to this, which is the test hands video. So if you like what you see in this video, you definitely want to check out that test hands video. And yeah, without further ado, let's get into it. All right, guys. So I separate the deck into a couple parts because it's probably going to be easier to understand why this deck is so consistent. If I break it down this way. And if you notice, I at least did 4 random test hands. None of them I bricked. Obviously, it's not necessarily always like that in a real match. You know, it doesn't matter how consistent or good or meta or top tier your deck is, you can always brick. But this deck is absurdly, obscenely, grossly, incredibly consistent, which is one of my favorite things. So I broke it up into basically the different functions of the deck, so it's much easier to understand why it does what it does. First of all, the best card in the deck, Odd Eyes Arc Pendulum Dragon. It says, if an Odd Eyes monster you control is destroyed by battle card effect, you can special summon one Odd Eyes monster from your hand, deck, or graveyard once per turn. So this is literally the purpose of the deck, which is why you're running 6 copies of it. Because this is, if you don't know, Summoner's Art. I have an English copy here. It says, search any level 5 or higher normal monster from your deck to your hand. And obviously this is a level 5 or higher normal monster. That's a neat interaction. You know, they make this to search normal monsters, but you end up searching a spell card. It's pretty cool. But anyways, this is the purpose of the deck, because once this is in your scale, your opponent is going to have a very hard time outing Odd Eyes Vortex Dragon, which is an Omni negate. It negates monsters, spells, or traps once per turn, and it's a Vortex card. So as long as you properly fusion summon it, and by properly fusion summon it, I mean use any card that actually fuses, not, for example, Absolute, which Absolute special summons, not fusion summons. As long as you can properly fusion summon it, you can revive it with this thing, which is the whole purpose of the deck. It's basically stuck on the field the whole duel, and your opponent just has to deal with it. So that's really cool. Also, this card says, the first line of text, when it's special summon, target 1 attack position monsters your opponent controls, return it to the hand. Which means if they destroy this and this thing revives it, it's also gonna get the bounce effect. So, you know, it's just a really annoying card, and it's really the whole purpose of the deck. So yeah, you're playing 6 copies of this. Then the important thing is that this needs an Odd Eyes card to be destroyed for it to trigger its effect. Which is why I'm running 8 copies, basically, of these guys. Because these guys, as you saw in the test hands, both have the effect to destroy any face-up card you control. So the point is that you're going to destroy an Odd Eyes card, which will then proc this thing to summon something from the deck, which is why I maxed out on them, because you really do want to open them. And the other cool thing is that since you're using this thing's destruction effect, its monster effect, you can hard draw these and they're not bricks. You know, it's not like other decks where people play this just for the +1 off of this. Like here, this is an actual combo piece, and I think the second test hand, if I'm not mistaken, I drew both of them and I used both of them to combo off. So you max out on them because you really want to draw them. And, you know, Darkwurm. Oh, and about Darkwurm. This thing has a freaking scale effect, which usually doesn't come up, but in this deck it comes up quite often. Once per turn, if you control no monsters, you can place 1 Supreme King Gate Pendulum monster from your deck in your Pendulum Zone, and you can only Pendulum summon dark monsters, which is obviously your whole deck. So what that means is, if your opponent clears your board, or if you have a really awkward hand, which sometimes does happen, instead of normal summoning this, you can actually put it in your Pendulum scale and use its scale effect to scale Supreme King Gate Infinity, which is a scale 13. So with scales 5 to 13, you can Pendulum summon out literally your whole deck. Which is another reason why this deck is really good pure, but it's not that good with magicians. Because if I were playing magicians, since this is a scale 5, I wouldn't be able to summon them out. Or I'd have to put gate 0, and I could summon the magicians out, but I can't summon the Odd Eyes cards out. So, you know, there's a bit of a an issue there. But with this, Darkwurm is basically a 1-card full scales, which also means that, where are you at? Revolution is basically a 1-card full scales, because Revolution can search this. So all in all, it's just really consistent, and you can literally just do anything you need with those cards. Then we have the low scale odd ice cards, which are all of these. So basically, the formula you want is you want to be able to have this thing in your scale, any of these, which these are, if you notice, 4 scale, 1 scale, and 6 scale. Doesn't really matter which. Any of these in your scale, in your other scale, you pendulum summon out either of these 2 guys. So let's say I summon this out, pendulum summon, and then you use this thing's effect to destroy this. This will trigger, and then you just go off, you know, you go crazy. So obviously for that to happen, you need to draw any of these, but these all have their purpose. So this thing, the good thing is that in the end phase, its scale effect is that during your end phase, you can destroy this card, and if you, hold on, there we go. And if you do, add 1 pendulum monster with 1500 or less attack from your deck to your hand. So basically, since it can destroy itself in the end phase, if you get interrupted and during your turn you're not able to destroy your own cards to trigger this, then during the end phase this will just pop itself and you'll anyways be able to trigger this. So you still get that +1. So that's really good, and that's how you sort of play around hand traps, which is why in the hand test I searched this specifically, because if I got interrupted, this is the best one to have in scale along with this. Then this dude, it's crazy. Basically in the scale, it can add 1200 attack to one of your monsters when they attack. I'm kind of summarizing, but that's basically what it does. Odd Eyes Phantom Dragon. And its monster effect is really, really crazy. It says, when this Pendulum Summon card inflicts battle damage to your opponent by attacking, you can inflict damage to your opponent equal to the number of Odd Eyes cards in your Pendulum Zone times 1200. So if you have 2 cards in your Pendulum Zone with Odd Eyes in their name, that's an extra 2400 attack that this does. Which basically means this alone can inflict 4900 points of damage to your opponent, which is insane. In fact, it's really funny because you'll notice this if you play test the deck enough. If you have this dude on the field, this guy in your scale, and literally any monster with 2500 attack, which is usually going to be your Vortex, but it can be literally anything. This is exactly 8000, because you have 25, 25, that's 50, and then you have 18 from this, and then this is also going to burn for an extra 200, 1200, I meant to say, because you're going to have at least 1 Odd Eyes card in your Pendulum Zone. That's 8000 life points. So this guy is really important for being able to end the game. Because usually you'll summon out more stuff, but you know, you gotta attack over your opponent's stuff. Maybe they bounce something or they destroy one of your monsters. And so after you clear their board, like if you can get these 3 attacks in, you can kill them. So that's really, really good. And Odd Eyes Persona, basically you can negate any extract monster your opponent controls. Really good, really beautiful, and ultra rare. They just came in the mail. That's why I finally made this profile, because I've been wanting to do this for a while. Finally got these. And Odd Eyes Synchron. You do not need to run this at all. It's not part of any crucial combo. But the fact that he's a tuner that's summonable off of this thing means that you can do a lot of crazy stuff, which you'll see when I get into the extra deck. So then we have these cards. This is really why the deck is so consistent. We have 11 cards that all they say is search. So you have 4 copies of Sky Iris, 3 copies of this, which is not once per turn, 3 copies of this, which if you didn't know, it adds any level 7 Odd Eyes monster from your deck or your face-up extra deck to your hand. So even if all 3 copies of these were used and destroyed, you know, during the duel, you can add them back from your extra deck to your hand, and also has another effect to destroy opponent's cards. And this searches any card with Pendulum in the name. So you can search either this, or a spell card that you're going to see in a moment. The reason I'm running it at 1 is because I've had this deck for over a year. I probably had it for about 2 years, and you draw enough hands that you notice that cards that are once per turn in a deck like this, can be bricky. It sounds silly, but really, like, this card at multiples does brick because it's once per turn. And for example, Skyrus is also once per turn, but Skyrus searches you anything you need, so it's kind of different. It will unbrick you. This thing, on the other hand, only searches you this or this, so it's not that crazy. And on top of that, it's not like Magicians, where in the Magician deck, if you have multiples, you can search Pendulum Call and then discard the other one off Pendulum Call. You can't do that here because I'm not running Pen Call. So yeah. But basically you have 11 cards that search your whole deck. That's the real reason why this deck is so consistent. And then you have these cards. These are known as lay bricks. So they're not actual bricks, but you don't really want to draw them. You'll only want to search them. So this guy, you've seen what he does. In his monster effect, makes you fusion summon. His scale effect also makes you fusion summon. You can draw him, and the combo is pretty much, it's almost the same. You just need like one more card. But even if you draw him, the combo is more or less the same, but you'd rather summon him from the deck. This thing, you guys saw its monster effect earlier, but its scale effect is also insane. Because this says, once per turn, you can discard one card and add one face-up Dragon Pendulum monster from your extra deck to your hand. Yo, I'm seriously don't understand how people don't run this card. This card is also one card scales as long as you have something to discard. For example, let's say you have Sky Iris, and you have Odd Eyes Arc Pendulum, and none of your other cards in hand are Pendulum cards. You can use Sky Iris to destroy this, search this, activate it in your scale, use its scale effect, discard a card, add this back to hand, and then activate it, and you're able to Pendulum summon, which is insane. Obviously, it's better late game when you actually have enough cards in your extra deck or your hand to summon, but basically it's a one card scale if you need it, or what I commonly use it for is that since it says add any Dragon Pendulum monster from your extra deck to your hand, I can discard something, and let's say I have a Darkwurm in my extra deck, I can add that Darkwurm back to my hand, normal summon it, search one of the gates, and then be able to, make a big Pendulum summon. Or a bigger Pendulum summon than what I would have otherwise done. So this card is insane. The only drawback to it is that it's a level 8. That's why I call it a brick. Same as this dude. This dude's a level 8. That's also why I call it a brick. Some very, very, very rare hands where you draw both of them, the better play is literally to just activate this in scale gate infinity, and just Pendulum summon both of them out. But that rarely happens, but they're okay if you draw them. It's Pendulum cards. This card, as you saw earlier, is broken, but it's not a Pendulum monster, so that's why it's a brick, because you can't do as much with it if you draw it. But another reason this card is so broken, and again, I don't understand why people don't run this in every single Odd Eyes list, is that this card says, if this card in your possession is destroyed, it gets to trigger its effect. What that means is that Odd Eyes, if you're playing this card, has one of the most broken things you can have in a Pendulum deck, which is a way to beat Solemn Strike, Solemn Warning, and Solemn Judgment. Because possession just means any side on your side of the playmat. So your deck, field, extra deck, graveyard, anywhere. Doesn't matter where. That's what possession means. So it basically means if you're going to Pendulum summon, let's say you're going to Pendulum summon these two. You Pendulum summon them out. Your opponent activates Solemn Strike, negating the Pendulum summon. They both get destroyed. Since this card was destroyed in your possession, you get to summon something else from the deck, and you get to add the Spiral Flame Strike, which will help you obviously destroy one of their cards, or just search whatever you need to search. So this card literally helps you beat Solemn Strike, which is crazy. That's one of the biggest fears of any Pendulum player, if they strike the Pendulum summon, and this helps you play around it. So that's really crazy. And then we have Pendulum Fusion. This card is 100% cuttable. You don't need it. I only run it to flex. Literally, I only run it to flex. But it's really crazy because it lets you fusion summon And it says if you have 2 cards in your Pendulum Zones, you can also use cards in your Pendulum Zones as fusion material. So what that means is after I Pendulum Summon, after I did my crazy wombo combo, let's say I have these 2 in the scale, I can then activate this and use these as material to make some fusion and keep on going. So this card is really good for ending games. It's just that if you draw it in your first hand, it's also good. Like, it's good against hand traps, because if your opponent hand traps you, you can then just use this to hard fuse into Vortex Dragon. But it's not optimal because you go neg when you do it. But you know, it is what it is. If you're hand trapped and you need to do that play, then you know it's doable. Also, something I want to point out: this will almost never come up. The times it has, I think I usually do it to flex. It only once came up in a serious duel where I actually had to do it. But this thing says once per turn, if you have Supreme King Gate Infinity, so the other one, in your other Pendulum Zone, you can destroy both cards, and if you do, add 1 Polymerization spell card or Fusion spell card from your deck to your hand. So this will almost never come up, but technically, if this is in your scale, this is in your scale, you can destroy both, and you'll be able to search out your Pendulum Fusion. So again, it only once came up where I actually need to do that, but you know, something to note. Then we have my 2 anti-hand trap cards. Obviously, you know what Call By is. This would be a triple tactics if I had one, but since I don't own one, then I'm just playing Mind Control because it's good for going second, obviously. But ideally, this would be a triple tactics talent. Technically, you could run multiples triple tactics, but the same thing with this in testing online. You're just gonna have a lot of hands where it bricks. You know, any card that isn't a Pendulum card and it has a once per turn on it, it's gonna brick. Or it has this chance to break, because you really just want your 5 cards to be Pendulum cards. And in this deck, I believe the count is 32 or 33 or 34. There's like 34-ish cards that are Pendulum cards. 30, something like that. It's really high. So the amount of bricking is very, very small. And since this is obviously at 1, I can't play more than 1. And this is once per turn if it were a triple tactics. Then, you know, that way you minimize bricking. And obviously going second, Mind Control is good. But, you know, when I get triple tactics, then this is coming out. And then the last 2 cards are Upstart Goblin and Upstart Goblin. So this is obvious. And this literally says Upstart Goblin. It says, reveal any number of Pendulum monsters in your hand, shuffle them into a deck, draw the same number, +1. Also, you cannot draw for the rest of the turn. Because let's say you shuffle this back, you draw 2 cards. Basically, you got rid of 2, you got back 2, you don't neg. So it's literally just another copy of Upstart Goblin. So you're just playing a 38 card deck by running these. And the restriction of this doesn't really impede you because the only other draw card in the deck is Upstart. And I guess technically, if you're playing triple tactics, then, you know, you just don't use the draw effect. But the only time this ever, you know, is an issue is when I use it and I draw into Upstart. But at that point, you're just bad at Yu-Gi-Oh! If that happens to you. So, yeah, that's what it is. It is what it is. It is what it is. It is what it is. But basically, that is the main deck. 40 cards, but technically you're playing 38 because of this. Again, you're playing 11 search cards that search your entire deck, and then you have, you know, maxed out on this, maxed out on this, maxed out on this. This card isn't once per turn, that's why you run it at 3. So it's really, 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 really consistent, which is what I love about the deck. Alright, so here we go. Best card of the extra deck, Odd Eyes Vortex. Enough said. Gatling Ghoul, when it's summoned, it burns your opponent for 200 points of damage for every card on the field. Then, non-targeting, destroy a monster your opponent controls. Then, burn them for the attack of that monster. And this dude has 2900 attack. This dude's actually insane. My friends that play against me know that when this hits the field, like, it's over. Like, it's literally over. They hate this card. But yeah, this card's actually insane. Also, there's a bunch of times I can end the game in main phase 2 with this. Like, I'll attack over everything and then just burn him for game in main phase 2. It's actually crazy. Like, this card's just crazy. I love it. Then we have Starving Venom. If I need to get over anything big and I can't use the Phantasma Dragon, this gets over it. So, really easy out to any monster, literally. Borlord Furious Dragon. Now, this dude is crazy. This dude takes 2 Dark Dragon monsters. Obviously, your whole deck is Dark Dragon monsters. What's really cool is that he has a quick effect that says, during our player's turn, quick effect, target 1 monster you control and 1 card your opponent controls, destroy both. Now, here's the cool thing about him. Since he destroys my monsters, for example, let's say this is my board. I have this dude, and this in my scale. I can use his effect, targeting this to destroy it, destroy one of my opponent's monsters. This will activate because this was just destroyed, summon it back. Then I'm going to get this thing's effect to bounce one of their attack position monsters to the hand. So this card on its own basically turned into 2 interruptions. And I still have this. So the synergy this thing has with this is crazy. But realistically, I almost never summon him. Not because he doesn't come up, he does. It's just usually I can finish the duel before that. Like, this dude comes up in the grindier games. When I'm grinding and I need to summon something to control my opponent, this is what I summon. But he's really, like, when he does come up, it's crazy. Like, it really is crazy because of the synergy with this dude. So that's the fusions. Meteor Burst, I don't think I've ever summoned him, but I only use him as a target to summon off of gate 0. F.A. Dawn Dragster, level 7. So how do we summon this? So the Tuner, which is level 2, and Persona, which is level 5. So obviously you use this for your trap and spell matchups. Really good. Metaphys Horus, one of my favorite cards of all time. Not many people know about it. The people that do know this card's crazy. But this is also the best Pendulum support card that nobody knows is actually Pendulum support. Because it says, if this card was Synchro summoned using any of these 3, normal, effect, or Pendulum monsters, you get those effects. And the Pendulum monster effect says, your opponent chooses 1 monster they control and gives control of it to you, but it cannot attack. What's important about this is that effect does not target. Obviously, your opponent gets to choose. But what's also important is that these 3 effects, they're all trigger effects, and they activate at the same time, so you can choose the order of the chain links. So for example, if you use an effect monster, which you obviously will, and a pendulum monster, which you will, you get both effects. You get the effect to negate something, target one under the face-up card, negate it, and you get the effect to steal something. So you can make chain link 1 the effect to steal, and chain link 2 the effect to negate. So if they have something like a Savage Dragon or something that has to respond to it directly, like an Appaloosa, they can't negate the first effect because it's chain link 1. And what that means is that they're going to lose a monster. And I can't tell you the amount of times, well, it's not happened too often, but it happens, it's happened a couple of times, that I can steal Dragoon with this. Because usually they'll just have Dragoon Anaconda or Dragoon Anaconda and some other random stuff attack over the other stuff, so only Dragoon is left, summon this, and then, chain link 1 effect to steal, chain link 2 effect to negate. Dragoon can't obviously negate the first effect, and the opponent basically has to give their Dragoon to you, which is really good. So yeah, that's that. This thing, it banishes everything from the graveyard when it's summoned. This can be changed for anything. I'm just using it because I don't it's the best level 9 or level 10 synchro I could find. You could also run Shenshin, but I'd rather run this. But, it never comes up. Almost never. Absolute almost never comes up, but if I need to summon Vortex the old-fashioned way, he's there. I swear this is not a meme. It's just that since you have a lot of beaters, it happens, or at least it's happened to me, that I'll attack everything my opponent has and I won't be able to kill them. They'll be like at 1500 or 1000 life points, and I'll summon this. And this is honestly better than Vortex, because when they're low on life, if they can still combo off and kill you, then they'll kill you. But if you summon this, then they just can't combo off. So this actually helps finish off games. This thing destroys a bunch of cards. It's not once per turn, so this comes up a lot, and it's a dragon, so after you use its effect, you can link it off for seal. Really good. You should run it. Also, you can use multiple monsters. It doesn't have to be 2. So if you use 3 monsters, you get to destroy 3 cards. So yeah, really good. Seal, you know what it does. Proxy Magician lets you fusion summon. This is usually how I summon the Borreload. Yep, that's that. So hope y'all liked the video. Alright guys, so now I'm going to give you guys some general tips about the deck in no particular order. Let's go. There's a lot of routes this deck can go, but as you guys saw in the test hands video, I like to keep it simple because I can put up 2 to 3 interruptions, under 5 summons with follow-up guaranteed. And, you know, you just don't need to go crazy. I don't need to play any bricks or, you know, any brick type cards or any cards that only work under certain circumstances. So, but obviously there's many other ways. There's people that like to make, to mix it with other archetypes or play a more combo heavy version. That's cool too. It's all up to how you want to do it. This is the way I found that works most consistently with the deck. And that I like, you know, that fits my playstyle. Also, I didn't mention it earlier, but the way that you make this guy, who's a level 6, is with the level 2 Tuner and Darkwurm. Also, this card, unfortunately, it's a V-Jump promo, and it's only usable in North America. So, well, unfortunately for now, we gotta ask Konami to reprint this, yo, so that peoples in Europe, Africa, and South America and Australia can use it. Because at least for the time being, this is only legal in North America. So keep that in mind. So another thing you guys want to keep in mind is that this thing can revive any Synchro, Xyz, or Fusion Dragon monster in your graveyard with its scale effect. And it destroys itself when it does that. So if you happen to have Borreload Furious Dragon or Vortex, either one, in your graveyard, you can scale this, use its effect, it destroys itself, and it can summon out Borreload Furious, which is insanely good because sometimes if you don't have any other monsters on your field, you're forced to use his effect on himself to destroy your opponent's monsters. And you basically have 3 copies of Monster Reborn that can summon him out. And since this destroys itself, if you happen to have Odd Eyes Arc Pendulum, you can, for example, scale, effect, target here. This destroys itself and revives. And in a new chain link, this would activate, summoning out any Odd Eyes from your deck or grave or hand. You can summon this out, and boom, just like that, you got back your 2 very important fusion monsters. So that's a really important thing to keep in mind, that this can trigger this and that this can revive this. Let's go. Alrighty guys, so that is it for the deck profile. Remember, there's a test hand video where I explain a couple of the interactions about the cards in the deck, especially I talk about this guy and this guy a little bit more during the test hands video. So definitely you guys want to check it out if you like this one. And yeah, that's it. If you have anything to say, you know where to leave them in the comments down below. And hope you guys have a great rest of your day. Take care. Peace.